Sophie Cunningham, who is become the summer it girl, the blonde bombshell, the bombastic battler. Yeah, Caitlin Clark's wing woman in the WNBA. She is standing up once again for Caitlin Clark. And this time, it's a little ridiculous that she even has to. I mean, think about this. Caitlin Clark is, of course, the face of the WNBA.
The WNBA world just witnessed something absolutely unprecedented. Sophie Cunningham, the fiery guard who's become known as Caitlin Clark's most loyal defender, just dropped the most explosive podcast debut in women's basketball history. And let me tell you, she didn't just defend her teammate. She went completely nuclear on anyone foolish enough to question whether Caitlin Clark is the undisputed face of the WNBA. The aftermath? Pure chaos. Social media erupted.
Literally, pisses me off when people are like, she's not the face of the league.
Who would be?
What?
Sabrina? No.
No, there's really good, well-known people in our league. I'm not discrediting them. We have a lot of badasses in our league.
Yeah.
Hell yeah to that. I'm all for that. But when people try to argue that she's not the face of our league, or if our league would be where we're at without her, you're dumb as
Players lost their minds, and suddenly everyone had an opinion about what Sophie said. But here's the thing. She said exactly what needed to be said, and the meltdown from her critics is proving her point better than any statistic ever could. This isn't just another teammate standing up for a friend. This is Sophie Cunningham declaring war on the backwards thinking that's been holding women's basketball back from reaching its full potential. She chose violence, and the entire basketball world is still picking up the pieces. Sophie's timing couldn't have been more perfect. Just a
Straight white girl. What about all the sisters and the white lesbians that came before her to build show of a league? Well, that's why it's show of a league. Because the sisters and the straight white girls and the lesbian white girls that tried to build it before them, guess what? It don't work. Of course, being 2025 means there are some people out there who want to argue.
She launched her brand new podcast with Colin Cowherd's Media Empire. The volume, she decided to tackle the most controversial topic in women's basketball head-on. This wasn't some accidental slip of the tongue or emotional outburst. Sophie Cunningham knew exactly what she was doing when she sat down for that first episode. She had a target in mind. Anyone dumb enough to argue that Caitlin Clark isn't the face of the WNBA, and she came out swinging like a heavyweight champion looking for a knockout punch. The girl literally turned her podcast debut into a masterclass on how to break the internet. While most athletes play it safe with their first media ventures, Sophie chose controversy.
talks that Phoenix had in the locker room of no, we're going to show her what the W really is. You know what I mean? And I get it to a certain extent. And every rookie coming into the league, that's how you're going to treat them. But There's just more for her. So it's her second year. And now being on her team and seeing it, I'm what are people doing? Actually it's just too much. Yeah. And it's just, I'm over. And if I'm saying it's too much, then it's probably too much.
No, that's so fair.
Chose truth and chose to defend the player who single-handedly transformed women's basketball into must-see television. She knew that launching a podcast with a softball topic would get her maybe a few thousand listens. But defending Caitlin Clark while calling out the haters? That's how you generate millions of views and become the most talked-about person in sports overnight. And boy, did the internet respond. The moment Sophie started speaking her truth about Caitlin's impact on the league, social media absolutely exploded. You had people rushing to Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok to either defend Sophie's comments or tear her apart for daring to state what everyone...
The biggest stars the WNBA's ever
Who's that?
had. Her name rhymes with Schmaitlin.
Hurtland?
Yeah. What has that been like, seeing her not only kind of transform a league, but also just be
no,
is that fair to say?
Not even just the league, but
The
women's
sport.
basketball as a whole around the world. No, I think it's awesome.
Everyone with eyes already knows. The reaction has been nothing short of hilarious to watch, with grown adults having complete meltdowns because someone had the audacity to acknowledge reality. But here's where it gets really interesting. Sophie didn't just make general statements about Caitlin being great. She got specific, she got personal, and she called out the exact mentality that's been poisoning WNBA discourse for years.
I think it's so funny because she's 22, 23 years old, and the whole world is watching her.
Yeah.
It is a cult following. I'm not kidding.
No, it's wild. The airport today.
insane.
It was like 22 everywhere.
Anywhere you go, like, it is a home game wherever we play. Like,
No way.
security with her 24/7. Like, people are outrageous. Like,
Wow.
think of the most famous person that you know or have met.
People tried to argue that Caitlyn isn't the face of the league. Sophie's response was brutal and direct. She literally said anyone making that argument is dumb as, and yeah, I'm cleaning up her language here because Sophie got a little spicy with her word choice. But the passion behind those words, that's what made her defense so powerful. The numbers don't lie, and Sophie knows it. Every single metric that matters in professional sports points to the same undeniable conclusion. Attendance figures, television ratings, merchandise sales, social media engagement. Caitlin Clark dominates every category that determines who really moves the needle in women's basketball. Sophie backed up her passionate defense with cold, hard facts, and that's what has her critics so twisted up inside. But here's where the story takes a fascinating turn. The very people having meltdowns over Sophie's comments are the same sports journalists and media personalities who completely ignored the WNBA for decades. These are the folks who couldn't be bothered to cover women's basketball when games were played in front of half-empty arenas, and nobody outside of hardcore fans knew when the season even started. Now suddenly, they're all experts on league dynamics and player hierarchy, writing think pieces about how Sophie's comments are somehow problematic or divisive. The hypocrisy is absolutely staggering. These same media members had zero issues crowning LeBron James as the face of the NBA or calling Tom Brady the face of the NFL. Nobody questioned those designations, nobody called them controversial, and nobody wrote essays about how it was disrespectful to other talented players in those leagues. But the moment someone applies the exact same logic to women's basketball, suddenly it becomes this huge controversy that requires deep analysis and concerned trolling about divisiveness. It's insulting to everyone's intelligence, and Sophie called it out perfectly. The double standard is so obvious that you'd have to be willfully blind to miss it. Male superstars get celebrated for their individual impact and drawing power, but when a woman does the same thing in her sport, we have to pretend that everyone contributes equally to avoid hurting feelings. Critics keep trying to argue that longevity should matter more than current impact, pointing to veteran players who've been in the league longer as somehow more deserving of recognition. But that's fundamentally misunderstanding what being the face of a league actually means. It's not a lifetime achievement award or a participation trophy. Being the face of your sport is about who represents the brand right now, who drives interest and engagement, who makes casual fans want to tune in and buy tickets. Sophie understands this better than most because she's living it every single day. She sees how different the atmosphere is when Caitlyn takes the court. She witnesses firsthand how fans react, how media coverage changes, how everything about the WNBA experience transforms when their biggest star is involved. That's not opinion. That's observable reality that any honest person would acknowledge. The partnership with Colin Cowherd's company also shows just how smart Sophie is about the changing media landscape. Traditional sports media is dying a slow death while podcast platforms are where the real conversations happen now. By aligning herself with the volume, Sophie positioned herself to reach exactly the audience that's driving WNBA growth. Sports fans who want authentic, unfiltered takes instead of the sanitized corporate speak that dominates traditional coverage. But Sophie didn't stop at general statements. She got specific, and that's what really has people losing their minds. When she mentioned Sabrina Ionescu by name as someone who definitely isn't the face of the league, you could practically hear keyboards clicking as fans rushed to defend their favorite players. The truth hurt, but it needed to be said. When's the last time a Sabrina Ionescu game broke viewership records? When's the last time people lined up for hours just to get her autograph? When's the last time her injury status was front page news on ESPN? The answer is never, and that's not a knock on Sabrina as a player. She's incredibly talented, but talent alone doesn't make you the face of your league. Cultural impact, mainstream appeal, and the ability to bring new fans to the sport. That's what separates good players from transcendent stars. The economic evidence is overwhelming and undeniable. Indiana Fever games consistently draw higher television ratings than games without Caitlyn. Merchandise sales spike whenever she's involved. Arena attendance is dramatically higher when she plays. These aren't opinions or feelings. They're measurable facts that prove Sophie's point beyond any reasonable doubt. Yet somehow, acknowledging these facts is treated as disrespectful to other players. It's the participation trophy mentality applied to professional sports, where everyone has to be equally celebrated regardless of their actual contribution to the league's success. That might work in youth sports, but professional athletics is a business, and businesses are built around stars who drive revenue and interest. The historical context makes Sophie's defense even more powerful. The WNBA has existed for over 25 years, and in all that time, they never had a player who could consistently draw mainstream attention the way Caitlin does. Previous generations of players worked incredibly hard to build the foundation, but let's be honest about what that foundation looked like. Half-empty arenas, minimal media coverage, and most of America having no idea when the season even started. Now you've got games selling out months in advance, record television ratings, and casual sports fans who never cared about women's basketball suddenly planning their schedules around fever games. But apparently, we're supposed to pretend that's just a coincidence that has nothing to do with one specific player's impact. The Dana Bonner situation that happened around the same time perfectly illustrated Sophie's point about fan loyalty and drawing power. When Bonner returned to Indianapolis after basically quitting on the Fever mid-season, she got booed by fans who paid their hard-earned money to attend the game. Instead of acknowledging that fans have every right to express their disappointment with a player who abandoned their team, the basketball world got lectures about how the booing was somehow distasteful or inappropriate. But here's the real kicker. Those fans didn't show up to boo Dana Bonner because she was some huge star. They showed up because Caitlin Clark was going to be there, even though she couldn't play due to injury. That's the kind of drawing power that defines a franchise player and proves exactly what Sophie was talking about. The podcast format was perfect for Sophie because it allowed her to speak without the usual media filters and corporate restrictions. She didn't have to worry about saying something that might upset a reporter or create unnecessary drama in the locker room. She could just tell the truth as she sees it. And the truth is that Caitlin Clark changed everything for the WNBA. The backlash to Sophie's comments has been particularly revealing because most of it is coming from people who probably couldn't name 5 WNBA players before Caitlin arrived on the scene. These are the same folks who are now suddenly experts on league history and player contributions, lecturing longtime fans about who they should and shouldn't appreciate. It's textbook gatekeeping, and it's completely counterproductive. Instead of welcoming new fans and celebrating the player who brought them to the sport, some people want to lecture them about proper appreciation protocols. That's a guaranteed way to drive people away and keep the sport stuck in its previous state of relative obscurity. What's particularly absurd is the pearl-clutching over Sophie's language. Her dumbest comment is considered pretty mild by most sports podcast standards, but because it's coming from a WNBA player defending Caitlin Clark, suddenly it's treated like she committed some major sin. Male athletes say much worse things regularly without generating nearly as much manufactured outrage, but a woman defends her teammate with some colorful language, and it becomes a national controversy. This whole situation perfectly captures the weird dynamic that's developed around Caitlin Clark in the WNBA. You've got unprecedented success, record-breaking numbers, and mainstream attention that the league has never experienced before. But there's this constant undercurrent of resentment about how and why that success happened, as if the league would somehow be better off without its biggest star. Sophie's defense cuts through all the political correctness and just states the obvious facts. Yes, Caitlin Clark is the face of the WNBA. Yes, the league would be in a dramatically different place without her. And yes, anyone who argues otherwise is probably letting their personal feelings cloud their judgment about what's best for women's basketball. The timing of Sophie's comments during Caitlin's injury recovery makes them even more significant. It shows that her teammates understand exactly how important she is to everything they're trying to accomplish. This isn't just public relations or media strategy, it's genuine recognition of impact and value. Sophie Cunningham just showed everyone how it's done. She launched a successful podcast, defended her teammate, and exposed the backwards thinking that holds the WNBA back from maximizing its potential. The people losing their minds over her comments are proving her point better than any argument she could have made. If you can't handle someone stating obvious facts about who drives interest in your league, maybe you need to examine why those facts make you so uncomfortable. The haters can stay mad. Sophie just proved that sometimes speaking the truth is still the best policy, even when it makes people uncomfortable.